Next on Worcester News Tonight, Veterans Day is observed across central Massachusetts. How some are remembering those who served. Plus, a scary incident in Northborough has people talking about holding drivers accountable who don't stop for school buses. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anna Botari. A salute to veterans across central Massachusetts, as many honor the men and women who are serving or who have served the country. This year marks 100 years since the end of World War I. Hundreds of Worcester residents fought and gave their lives in the Great War, and they're remembered with memorials around the city. Our Cam Jandro joins us now live with more. Cam?
Anna, at the time, World War I could be arguably the worst conflict the planet had seen up to that point, and like many other cities, Worcester too had a role.
100 years ago, an armistice marked the end of the First World War.
In about a year of fighting, mostly actually in the last 3 or 4 months, we lost almost 120,000 men from this country. It really hit this country very hard.
Worcester State history instructor Linda Hickson contributed to titled, "They Ventured Far in the Cause of Liberty," the names of Worcester's Memorial Auditorium. The book honors the 353 men and 2 women who gave their lives during what is known as the Great War.
Most of them either were born here or had some kind of tie to the city of Worcester. Worcester, I don't think, was any different than most cities. They sent about 4,000 men to fight and lost about 400.
John Willard Moran died in the Battle of Belleau Wood. Today, his name sits on a monument just outside the campus of Worcester State University.
That battle was so horrific that there were body parts hanging from trees. I mean, it was that bad. And he was injured and taken off the field and died later at a hospital.
But battle wasn't the only thing taking a toll on soldiers in the final year of the war. The 1918 flu pandemic took the lives of millions in and out of the battlefield, making it one of the darkest times in human history.
We're in the 100th anniversary of that, too. That is the largest loss of human life in the shortest span of time ever in the world's history.
Now, the auditorium was actually built as a World War I monument, and if you go inside today, all 355 names are still on a wall. Anna?
Thanks, Cam. While others in Central Mass observed the holiday, giving back and thanking veterans. Our Chandler Walsh has the story.
Bob Prohl walks through the state's Vietnam Veterans Memorial at Green Hill Park, paying his respects to fallen soldiers. He was a radar maintenance man in the Air Force just before the Vietnam War, but has loved ones who saw combat.
I got one here someplace that was missing in action in Vietnam.
Prohl appreciates the attention veterans get, but says it should extend beyond Veterans Day.
They did protect us, and that's it. Every day.
In Auburn, the Auburn-Webster Lodge of Elks recognizes local veterans with handmade quilts made by the Quilts of Valor Foundation. The Auburn Elks have given dozens of one-of-a-kind quilts the last 4 years.
They want veterans to know that they're getting a big hug while they're out at war, whether they're home, whether they're sick or not.
They also come with a pillowcase to store the quilt or important documents.
As soldiers were getting injured and they started giving the quilts to these soldiers, they needed a place to put their paperwork or their discharge papers.
Peter Bisha runs the Veterans Day luncheon where the quilts are awarded. He remembers getting his own years ago for his service.
1968, in the United States Navy, Vietnam, on a destroyer, Saigon River, and we've seen a lot of stuff that I don't like talking about.
Bisha says he and his comrades weren't welcomed coming home from Vietnam because of the perception of the war. He's happy to see the welcome veterans now receive.
I say it's about time, but I'm glad they're doing it for the younger crowd.
That was our Chandler Walsh reporting. A Northborough family loses their home in a fire over the weekend, and the community is rallying together for them. Carolyn Venical is on the booster club for the Algonquin football team. The home which burned down belonged to the club's president. Everyone made it out of the blaze safely, but the house is a total loss, and the family lost everything inside. Venical has started a GoFundMe page, and in 24 hours, more than $30,000 have been raised.
Though we can't bring back all the things that they lost, at least we can help them make new memories in a new home. People are still good and people love them and support them.
Wenzel says there's no specific goal and is hoping to help replace as much as possible. Also in Northborough, a near miss at a school bus stop has people talking about holding drivers accountable who don't stop for school buses. Our Rosalind Flaherty has more.
A close call for kids getting off a school bus in Northborough. A minivan drives through the bus's stop signals, just missing them.
If they had gotten off the bus a little more earlier, they might have been gotten hit.
Dashcam video captured the incident last week at about 3:30 in the afternoon on Davis Street. Other cars can be heard beeping for the minivan to stop. Farhan Abrahini lives next to where the kids were getting off the bus. He says his high schooler almost got hit in the same spot last year.
The bus was stopped, the stop sign was on, and as she was crossing the street, the car just went right through.
We showed the video to other neighbors. Mike Marion says they've been trying to make this part of the street a one-way for years to avoid something like this.
That's intolerable. There's nothing more important than our children. They need to be protected.
Their advice is for drivers to slow down and pay attention so a tragedy doesn't happen.
Be careful of children. There's nothing more important than kids. That's your prime responsibility when you're behind the wheel.
These kids don't know much, but we as an adults, we definitely have to pay more attention on the road.
Rosalind Flaherty, Worcester News Tonight.
The co-creator of Marvel Comics, Stan Lee, has died. His death hitting home for Marvel fans here in Worcester. Ken Carson is the store manager at That's Entertainment. He says even though it's not unexpected, it's still a shock. Stan Lee was 95 years old and had been sick several times over the past year. His list of achievements is long. Lee co-created the Fantastic Four before coming up with Spider-Man, Black Panther, The Incredible Hulk, and The Avengers, just to name a few. Carson says he basically co-created everything in Marvel in one way or another and leaves behind a legacy.
It's just a jarring thing for anyone who's been in the hobby. Stan Lee has always been there. At 95 years old, he goes back further than anybody in comics. So it's a loss in that sense, a loss to the past, a loss of that connection right to the beginning.
Carson says they've received many messages from customers who say a big part of why Stan Lee was so important to them was because he told you through his stories it was okay to be different, have flaws, but you should do your best through what you've been given. Hollywood comes to Worcester as film crews take over downtown to shoot a movie starring Liam Neeson. Commercial and Mechanic Streets were shut down earlier today for filming of Honest Thief. According to IMDb, the movie is an action thriller involving a bank robber who tries to turn himself in but realizes the feds are more corrupt than him. Many spectators were hoping to get a glimpse of Neeson. Some scenes are being filmed in Worcester and Oxford until December. Black Friday shoppers are getting ready to swarm the outlet stores in Wrentham, but there are a few things that they need to know. John Maroney has the story.
Continue on Beach Street for 1 mile.
The Wrentham outlets attract massive crowds Black Friday weekend, creating gridlock for people living in nearby neighborhoods.
It's a back road, and we have to sit and wait to get out of our driveway.
Police are stepping up traffic restrictions for the unofficial start of the holiday shopping season.
Head south on Massachusetts 1A South.
There will be only one way in and one way out of the outlets. Exit 15 on Route 495. Wrentham's chief is telling out-of-towners to ignore their GPS.
Then turn left onto Wampum Street
when looking for a route around the congestion.
All of those main routes will be open, but when your GPS tries to get you into a neighborhood, you're going to get shut down.
More than a dozen streets will be open to residents only. There have been closures in the past, but this year, holiday shoppers should expect more blockades and more police.
So you've never been stuck yourself then?
No, you get stuck a little bit, then you say, I should have went the other way.
Neighbors say the strategy seems to be working. The outlets are now 20 years old, so they've become familiar with the traffic patterns.
In 600 feet, you will arrive at your destination.
You kind of learn to live with it and figure out where you can go and when not to go shopping. I never go to the mall on weekends. I always go during the week.
Those street closures and restrictions will take place on Thursday, Thanksgiving, and last right through the weekend. In Wrentham, John Maroney for Worcester News Tonight.